Peace be upon you and welcome to a new episode. Today we're going to tell one of the most dangerous and strangest criminal stories in the history of Egypt. The story of Gaddafi Farag Abdel Atti, who became known as the Butcher of Giza. This man wasn't just an ordinary criminal. He was a genius in deception, a professional con artist, and a serial killer. He lived his entire life behind different masks, tricking people, stealing their money, and if anyone threatened him, he would get rid of them in cold blood. We're going to tell his story from the very first day he was born in 1971 in Bulaq al-Dakror, Egypt, until he stood before justice in 2025. We'll dive into every crime he committed, whether fraud, theft, or murder, and see how he managed to gain people's trust only to destroy them one by one. This story needs your full attention. It's packed with chilling details and devilish cunning. Get ready, because this story will make you question whether something like this could really happen in real life. And before we begin our story, don't forget to like and share the episode so it can reach as many people as possible. If you're a fan of Indian stories, subscribe to the other channel to get all the latest content. You'll find the link in the description box. And without further delay, let's dive deep into our story. Gaddafi Farag Abdel Atti was born on October 20th, 1971, in the neighborhood of Bulaq al-Dakror, a crowded working-class area in Giza. His family home was simple, red brick, cracked walls, but clean. His father, Hajj Farag, was a Quran teacher at the local mosque. He was a religious man, respected by everyone in the neighborhood, and known for his good manners. His mother, Hajja Amina, was a housewife who cooked meals like cautionary and molokhia that people in the area talked about. She also sewed clothes for the neighbors to help support the household. Gaddafi was the middle child of 5 siblings, but he stood out from an early age. He had bright, shiny eyes and a smile that made anyone trust him from the first word. By the time he was 6, he was memorizing Quranic chapters at an unusually fast pace. His father would take him to the mosque to proudly show off his son, the gifted learner. In primary school, Gaddafi was always top of his class. He could solve math problems in his head without pen and paper and wrote essays that amazed his teachers. But at the same time, there was something strange about his personality. He liked to control everything. If he played football with his friends, he had to be the one to pick the teams and decide who played and who sat out. If someone disagreed with him, he could convince them with just a few words, or scare them with a sharp look. His friends said he loved feeling like the smartest one, even in simple games like backgammon or dominoes. By 1981, when he was 10 years old, signs of greed began to show. He used to take money from his friends under the pretense of buying them candy or juice from the corner shop, then come back saying the money was lost. He felt smarter than everyone and knew how to get out of situations easily. In 1983, when he entered middle school, he started to show he wanted a life far beyond what his family could afford. He liked wearing stylish clothes, even if they were borrowed from his cousin. He told his friends he went to places like downtown Cairo or Metro Cinema, even though he rarely left the neighborhood. To chase those dreams, he started small scams. He once took 20 pounds from a classmate, claiming he'd buy him a genuine leather football from a store in Daki. Instead, he spent the money on himself and bought a new pair of jeans from the Friday market. When the classmate confronted him, Gaddafi said the ball had been stolen from him on the bus. The boy believed him, and Gaddafi had gotten away with it easily. These incidents were like the first seeds of what was yet to come. By the time he entered high school in 1985, Gaddafi had become a handsome young man at 14, and his charisma had grown noticeably. He spoke to adults as if he had years of experience. At school, he participated in the morning radio broadcast. His voice was strong and confident, and everyone listened when he spoke. He liked to stand out. He wore the school uniform but added touches like a fake luxury watch that looked expensive. He used to tell his friends that he would become a big businessman, open factories and companies, and live in a villa in Zamalek. In 1987, when he was 16 years old, Gaddafi carried out his first relatively big scam. He convinced a schoolmate, the son of a butcher in the neighborhood, to give him 100 Egyptian pounds to buy a rare textbook from the Cairo Book Fair in Nasser City. £100 was a large amount at the time, but Gaddafi managed to persuade the boy with his smooth talk and confident looks. He took the money, bought himself a stylish pair of sports shoes, and spent the rest. When the boy asked for the book, Gaddafi told him it was sold out at the fair and that he would return the money soon. The boy threatened to tell his father, but Gaddafi calmed him down and promised to give him double the money if he kept quiet. The boy stayed silent, and Gaddafi felt once again that he was smarter than everyone else. In 1990, Gaddafi enrolled in the Faculty of Law at Cairo University. The university was full of ambitious young people, and he saw it as a golden opportunity. He was a handsome young man, always well-dressed, and spoke sweetly. In lectures, he participated with great confidence and analyzed legal concepts like an experienced lawyer. Professors praised his intelligence, and his classmates respected him. But Gaddafi wasn't really interested in law. He saw it as a slow path, and he wanted fast money without hard work. At university, he started meeting students from wealthy families, from Zamalek, Nasser City, and Heliopolis. He told them he had business ideas that could make them a lot of money. In 1991, he scammed a classmate, the son of a real estate developer. He took £1,000 from him, claiming he would buy rare legal books from the book fair and sell them for profit. Instead, he used the money to buy an elegant suit and spent the rest on personal pleasures. When the classmate asked for his money, Gaddafi managed to convince him that the project failed and it wasn't his fault. In 1994, he graduated from law school with a good grade. Everyone expected him to become a successful lawyer, but Gaddafi had a different vision. He told his father that practicing law wouldn't bring money quickly and that he wanted to go into business instead. His father tried to persuade him otherwise, but Gaddafi was determined. He decided to enter the world of real estate brokerage, and that's when the next phase of his life began. In 1995, Gaddafi started working as a real estate broker, buying, selling, and renting apartments and land. He worked as a low-level employee in a small construction company, but his financial situation was tight and he craved a luxurious lifestyle. Real estate was the perfect path for him. It didn't need much capital but required intelligence and smooth talk. Gaddafi had that talent. He could convince people that he'd find them their dream home or the cheapest plot of land. He wore sharp suits and talked about his connections with contractors and business owners, though most of it was lies. In 1998, he scammed a family that wanted to buy an apartment in Al Haram. He took a sum of money from them, claiming he would finalize the paperwork within a week. When he missed the deadline, the family threatened to report him to the police. Gaddafi managed to calm them down and told them he would pay them back in installments. Of course, he never returned a thing. And the family, fearing damage to their reputation in the neighborhood, stayed silent. In 2000, he began expanding his scamming circle. He convinced a small businessman in Bulak to invest in a residential building project. He took £100,000 from him, claiming he would hire contractors and start construction soon. But Gaddafi took the money and disappeared for a while. When he reappeared, he told the man the contractor had run off with the money. The man threatened to file a police report, but Gaddafi convinced him he was innocent. And since there were no signed documents proving he had taken the money, nothing happened. In 2014, Gaddafi had started making good money from real estate brokerage, but most of it came from scams. He decided to resign from his job as a regular employee and work full-time as a real estate broker. He used to tell people he was now a businessman and that he had an office in downtown Cairo, when in reality, his office was just a small rented room in Bulaq. That year, he began living a more luxurious lifestyle, wearing brand-name clothes, going to fancy restaurants, all to create the illusion that he was wealthy. In 2015, Gaddafi met a woman named Fatima al-Zahra. Fatima was a quiet, respectful girl from a middle-class family in Giza. Gaddafi, as usual, presented himself as a shy, kind, and deeply religious man. He wore elegant suits and spoke proudly about his success in real estate. Fatima and her family were impressed by him, especially since he prayed with them at the mosque and talked about his good morals and closeness to God. In September 2015, he married Fatima using his real name, Gaddafi Farag Abdel Atti. But what Fatima didn't know was that she wasn't his first wife and wouldn't be the last. Gaddafi had been married before under his real name, but he also had other wives under fake identities. That same year, Gaddafi was having an illicit relationship with Nadine, Fatima al-Zahra's sister. Nadine was a young, ambitious woman who dreamed of becoming a famous actress. Gaddafi exploited her dream, telling her he knew major producers and directors and that he could help make her a star. He talked about fake films and TV series and even showed her forged contracts to convince her. Nadine, still young and chasing fame, believed him and got emotionally attached. Over the course of a year, he took 30,000 Egyptian pounds from her under the pretense of covering audition and filming costs. But when Nadine found out he was planning to marry her sister Fatima, she decided to expose him. She threatened to tell her family and sister that Gaddafi wasn't the kind man they believed he was, that he was a con artist who deceived people. At that point, Gaddafi saw Nadine as a serious threat. So, he decided to commit his first murder. Instead of being afraid or backing down, he used his devilish intelligence. He convinced Nadine to refocus on her dream of acting and told her that a Syrian producer friend of his wanted to sign her for a major TV series. He said she would have to travel abroad and would star in several productions for a large sum of money. Nadine, excited by the opportunity, believed him. But her family initially refused, saying she couldn't travel alone. Gaddafi didn't give up. He paid a man from the neighborhood to act as the Syrian producer. That man went with Gaddafi to Nadine's family home, who were also Gaddafi's in-laws, and convinced her parents that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Nadine to become a star. After pressure from Nadine herself, her parents agreed. Nadine signed a fake contract and traveled with Gaddafi. Or at least, that's what they were told. In reality, Gaddafi took her to an apartment he had rented in Bulaq al-Dakrur. He gave her juice laced with poison. When she began to feel pain and collapsed, he grabbed a hammer and struck her on the head until she died. Then, he dug a hole in the floor of the apartment, buried her body, and tiled over it. To mislead her family, he kept sending messages from Nadine's phone. Once he said she had injured her leg and couldn't talk. Another time he said she was busy filming a series. Then he claimed she had moved to a new home and couldn't get in touch. Nadine's family began to suspect him, but they had no proof. When they confronted him, Gaddafi acted innocent and claimed he was also worried and looking for the Syrian producer. In reality, Nadine was buried beneath the tiles, and Gaddafi continued living his life as if nothing had happened. In the same year 2015, Gaddafi had a lifelong friend named Engineer, Rida Mohammed Abdel Latif. Rida was an electronics engineer working in Saudi Arabia, and he used to send a lot of money to Egypt for investment. Gaddafi, knowing Rida had money, convinced him that real estate investment in Egypt would bring huge profits. He told him he would buy apartments and land at low prices and sell them for big gains. Rida, who trusted Gaddafi like a brother, began sending him money every month. Over 3 years, from 2012 to 2015, Reda sent Gaddafi around 3 million Egyptian pounds. But Gaddafi didn't invest a single pound. He spent all the money on himself and lived a luxurious life. In April 2015, Reda decided to return to Egypt to see his investments for himself. Gaddafi, upon learning that Reda was coming, decided to eliminate him before he could expose him. He welcomed Reda at Cairo airport with his usual smile and told him he'd take him to an apartment he had bought in his name to treat him to a meal of cautionary, which Reda had loved since their youth. They went together to an apartment in Bulaq al-Dakrur, a place Gaddafi had prepared specifically for his crimes. He served Reda a plate of cautionary, but it was laced with poison. When Reda began to feel pain and scream, Gaddafi grabbed a metal object from the kitchen and struck him on the head several times until he was sure he was dead. Then, he dismembered Reda's body, put the parts into plastic bags, dug a hole in the apartment floor, buried the body, and tiled over it. To mislead Reda's family, Gaddafi took his phone and sent messages to his sister. In one message, he claimed he was arrested in a protest in January 2015 and didn't know where security forces would take him. In another message, he said he had traveled abroad and couldn't communicate at the moment. Reda's family started to grow suspicious, but they had no proof. Gaddafi, meanwhile, would go to their home, pretend to be worried, and claim he was also looking for Reda with them. The apartment, now a secret grave, contained the bodies of both Nadine and Reda, and Gaddafi continued his life as if nothing had happened. In the same year, 2015, Gaddafi decided to get rid of his first wife, Fatima Zakaria. Fatima had begun to grow suspicious of his behavior. One day, while checking his phone, she found a number of ID cards in his desk drawer, all with his photo, but under different names. Gaddafi Farag, Reda Mohammed, Mohammed Mustafa. When she confronted him, Gaddafi tried to calm her down, but Fatima threatened to go to the police and tell her family that he was a con artist. Gaddafi, fearing the scandal, decided to eliminate her the same way. He invited her to his apartment in Bulaq al-Dakrur and served her food laced with poison. When she began to feel pain and scream, Gaddafi strangled her to death. Then, he cut up her body into small pieces, placed them in plastic bags, and stored the bags in a deep freezer in the apartment until they were frozen. He later moved them to the same apartment where he had buried Nadine and Reda. He dug a new hole under the tiles, buried the body, and sealed it with fresh tiles. To mislead her family, he told them Fatima had taken money from him and run away, and that he had no idea where she was. Fatima's family filed a report, but there was no evidence against him. Gaddafi, as usual, managed to escape without consequences. After disposing of Fatima, Gaddafi decided to completely renovate the apartment. He installed new ceramic tiles, painted the walls, and replaced the furniture. Then, he put the apartment up for rent, and a family actually rented it and lived there for 4 years, completely unaware that under the tiles lay the bodies of 3 people. During that time, Gaddafi maintained his image in the neighborhood as a respectable man, praying at the mosque and talking about his good character and religious devotion. In 2017, Gaddafi decided to leave Giza Governorate and move to Alexandria. He took all the documents belonging to Engineer Reda, including his national ID and legal authorizations. and began living under his name. He forged all official documents and opened an electronics store in the Asafra district. In Alexandria, he introduced himself as engineer Rida Mohammed Abdel Latif, a specialist in electronics engineering. People there were impressed by him. He wore fancy suits and spoke about his work experience in Saudi Arabia. That same year, he sold all of Rida's properties, apartments and land, and made millions of pounds from it. In Alexandria, he met a woman named Yasmin Nasser Ibrahim. Yasmin was a simple young woman working at a nearby shop. She had saved 45,000 Egyptian pounds from her job to pursue her dreams. Gaddafi convinced her that he had major investment opportunities in the electrical appliances trade and that if she invested with him, she would make huge profits. He took the money from her and promised to marry her, but, as always, he spent the money on himself. When Yasmin asked for her money back, Gaddafi told her he didn't have any cash but could give her electrical appliances from the store's warehouse equal to the amount. He invited her to the shop's storage unit in Asafra at night. When she arrived, he wrapped a rope around her neck, strangled her to death, and struck her on the head to make sure she was dead. Then, he dug a hole in the warehouse floor, buried her body, and covered it with tiles. The shop continued operating as normal, and no one suspected a thing. In 2018, Gaddafi, still using the name Reda, met a pharmacist named Noha from a wealthy family in Alexandria. He convinced her that he was a successful businessman with investments in the Gulf. Noha was impressed by him and agreed to marry him after being dazzled by his sweet talk and luxurious gifts. But after the marriage, which lasted only 3 months, Noha discovered he was stingy, greedy, and nothing like the man she had imagined. She asked for a divorce and Gaddafi agreed, but decided to take revenge on her and her family. In January 2019, he disguised himself in a niqab, face veil, and sneaked into Noha's family home in Alexandria. He knew they were traveling because he had been watching them. He opened the apartment with a key he had secretly stolen from Noha and stole gold and money worth 500,000 Egyptian pounds. Noha's family suspected him and filed a police report, but Gaddafi had already vanished. At that time, he changed his residence and changed his identity to Mohammed Mustafa, creating new official documents with the help of people he paid off. In 2020, Gaddafi met a woman named Mai from a financially comfortable family in Alexandria. He convinced her that he was a successful businessman and took 200,000 Egyptian pounds from her under the pretense of investing in a commercial project. But, as usual, he spent the money on himself. That same year, he decided to sell the gold he had stolen from Noha's family. He went to a jewelry shop in Asafra and sold a small amount the first time without raising suspicion. But on his second visit, he brought a large bag full of gold. The jeweler, a man in his 50s, became suspicious of the jewelry, especially since the police had recently distributed a flyer with details of the gold stolen from Noha's family. The jeweler secretly contacted the police and asked Gaddafi to wait a little while so he could examine the gold. The police arrived quickly and arrested Gaddafi right there in the shop. When the police arrested Gaddafi, they discovered that the identity he was using, Mohammed Mustafa, was fake. When they searched his documents, they found out his real name was Gaddafi Farag Abdel Atti, not Engineer Rida, as he had claimed in Alexandria. Rida's family rushed to Alexandria when they heard their brother had been arrested. But when they saw him, they realized it was Gaddafi, not Rida. Under pressure during the investigation, Gaddafi confessed to all his crimes. He admitted to killing Nadine in March 2015, Fatima Zakaria in July 2015, Reda Mohammed Abdel Latif in April 2015, and Yasmin Nasser Ibrahim in June 2017. He also confessed to scamming many people out of millions of pounds and to stealing gold from Noha's family. Police went to the apartment in Bulak el Dakror and discovered the bodies buried beneath the tiles. In Alexandria, they found Yasmin's body buried in the store's warehouse. The case became one of the biggest criminal cases in Egypt because Gaddafi had lived a double life for years without anyone suspecting him. In 2021, Gaddafi's trials began. In March 2021, he was sentenced to death for the murder of Nadine. In April 2021, he received another death sentence for the murder of Yasmin. In March 2022, he was sentenced to death for killing Fatima Zakaria. In October 2023, he received his fourth death sentence for the murder of Rita. In addition to those death sentences, he was also sentenced to prison for various fraud and theft cases, including the theft of Noha's family's gold and multiple fraud cases from 1996, 1998, 2000, and 2020. Egypt's Court of Cassation upheld the death sentences in 2024 and 2025, and the rulings are now awaiting final approval by the President of the Republic for execution. Gaddafi Farag Abdel Atti was like the devil in human form, a man who spent his whole life deceiving people, stealing their money, and killing them if they threatened him. He could easily earn anyone's trust with his smile and sweet talk, only to use that trust to destroy them. This story isn't just about crimes. It's about how intelligence can become a dangerous weapon if used the wrong way. Folks, we need to be cautious when dealing with people and not trust anyone too easily. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. If this is your first time watching the channel, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new stories. Stay tuned for the next episode. Goodbye.